You're listening to the Mind Your Business podcast. Today, we're talking all about what to do when you feel stuck in your business. So, stay tuned. Hi, I'm James Wedmore, and I've built a 7-figure internet business that offers the financial freedom to do what I want, when I want. And I'm the first to say that hard work and hustle are not essential ingredients for your success. So, how do you build a thriving business from the inside out? This is the Mind Your Business podcast, featuring myself and co-host Phoebe Mroczek. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the call. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm your host, James Wedmore.
And I'm Phoebe Mroczek.
And I apologize for any of the lower audio quality sound that we might have here. I'm actually traveling right now. I'm actually in Orlando, Florida at Disney World.
And tell them actually where you are. When you told me this.
I'm in a treehouse. There's literally like swamp ground. They're called the Treehouse Villas in the Saratoga Springs Resort on the Disney World property, which is just massive. Like, I live 20 minutes away from Disneyland. I went to college like 5 minutes away from Disneyland. You can hear the fireworks at night. It's so small compared to this, and it was so like something I was just not prepared for. I went when I was a baby, so I've never really been. It's so overwhelming. It's so massive. It's so big, and you're just like a little ant, a little dot in a city. It's the size of San Francisco. Phoebe.
Oh my God. No, I didn't. It just sounds overwhelming. It gives me a little bit of anxiety.
And I was at Epcot today, and I was texting Phoebe. She's like, "Hey, we need to record an episode." And I'm like, "Okay, hold on. Let me leave." Like, I wish it was that simple. I was like, it took me like 20 minutes. And there's a marathon happening right now. So there's 35,000 people in town just for the marathon. And then on top of that, it's the like annual or quarterly or something food and wine festival. So you couldn't move. So it took me a while just to get out of the park. But then when you get out of the park, you realize you're still in the park. Like, there's hotels and boardwalks and lakes. And I know it's like the stereotypical guy like who doesn't ask for directions, but I finally had to go out to someone. I was like, please help me go home. Like, I don't know. I'm a lost kid right now, and I don't know how to get home. 35 minutes later, here we are.
Well, so, because they tell you, they're like, take a boat to the...
Yeah. That was the best part. I was like, I need to go home. How do I do that? And they're like, okay, you see that lighthouse? I'm like, yeah, that one like half a mile away. They're like, yeah. At that lighthouse, you're going to wait for a boat. It's going to be here in about 10 minutes. That boat's going to take you across the lake. And I'm like, whoa, this is too complicated. This is too much. They do a really good job of immersing you. And immerse is like the euphemism for trapping you. Yeah,
exactly. I'm like, immerse? I don't know about immerse, but yeah.
But they have this thing where you wear a bracelet now. Now, I guess this has been a couple years, and they don't do this at Disneyland, but you wear a bracelet. It's almost like an Apple Watch. And it syncs everything. So it opens the door to your treehouse. It gets you in and out of the park, and it pays for everything. If you want like dinner, drinks, whatever, you just wave your little wristband for everything. I'm like, this is so cool. So
how really smart is that too?
But I'm here in Orlando. I believe it or not, it is for work. It's workcation, work and play. But I'm here at a workshop talking business. And what I came to the workshop primarily to talk about was something that I've been teaching and talking about for years, which is YouTube and video. And what's so great is the organizer of the event, Jimmy Nelson, created an experience where people are both working and hanging out and networking. So there was a lot of getting to know the people that are at this event. And, I've said this before. I actually said this to them, and I'm going to say it to you now, that if you want to be a more effective marketer, it comes down to being a more effective listener. And so I like to just ask a really good question. I think I'm really obsessed now with great questions, like questions that just like open up people's thinking in a way that they've never been able to think before. I really love doing that. Like bizarre forward thinking, like, okay, well, if we were here this time next year, and, just scenario type things, right? So I listened, and one thing that came up, and the conversation that came from it, I really feel like landed for this person I was talking to, was about feeling stuck, about feeling like the progress wasn't there in their business, that it wasn't moving along fast enough, they weren't happy with the speed. I don't know how much I've brought this up on the podcast before, but I'm a big fan of patience over persistence. And I think that is a good overarching theme, that patience, well, a real form of patience, like, patience is an interesting word in and of itself, because you tell someone to be patient, it's because they're not being patient. But having a sense of like peace and trust and knowingness and expectation, that's what I mean by patience. I think that's a much better place to come from than persistence. Mm-hmm. Because when I hear persistence, I hear impatient. I hear frustrated. I hear hustle. I hear long hours. I hear, jamming the square peg into the round hole. So I always like to come from that. And that was really the first thing I shared with this person. So if you're one of those people that feels like you've been doing all the right things, we hear that a lot, right, mm-hmm. Phoebe? Like, I've been taking all the courses, I've been doing everything everyone tells me to, and it's just not working.
Oh my gosh, all the time. I'm having this conversation all the time. Yeah.
And that's the first thing to say is like, okay, welcome to the club. Mm-hmm. This is normal. Like, this is a part of the process. And so when we talk on this podcast about things like, go with the flow and business doesn't have to be a struggle, I'm not saying that you're not going to have times like this. I'm not saying that there's some secret strategy that has you shortcut all this. I'm saying that the struggle, the pain, the frustration is all a choice that we get to make in the moment. Like, there's such a great example, and I forget where I read this in some book, but I'll give you a couple examples. Pain. When you know pain is for a good thing, you'll endure. Like when you're working out. Mm-hmm. How many people love things like CrossFit? Hey, you know the joke? Like, how do you know when someone does CrossFit?
How?
They'll tell you.
Yeah. Same with overwhelm, right? God.
Well, yeah, they'll tell you about that. But you know what I mean? Like, when you work out, you know that when you hit that 10th rep, that, when it's burning, like, that's where all that progress is made. But there's pain there, right? Mm-hmm. That's good pain, and people like that. And so they invite it. So what I'm getting at here is that when it's something that is good, it's a choice that you invite. It's like, yeah, no pain, no gain. But there's a lot of times that we have pain in growing our business that is unwelcome and harmful pain. That fear of uncertainty, of not knowing where, or how the bills are going to get paid, or if this is ever going to work. Like, that can be scary. What we really want to encourage here as we help cultivate a more empowering mindset is that there has to be a sense of like peace and trust and knowingness and confidence with you. And people have it backwards. Like, that's my hashtag. If I had to have my own hashtag, it's hashtag backwards. Because we do it all backwards. When I say you create success from the inside out, we're doing it the opposite, right? The model is be, do, have. And people are saying, when I have this, I will be that, right? When I have this result, or when I have this business, or I have this much money, then I can finally be happy, content, satisfied. And it's backwards. You must identify what you want first and ask the question, who do I need to become in order to bring that into my life? And successful, abundant, giving, whatever words you want to use, type people and business owners are not worried and full of fear and full of strife all day. So you have to be able to let go of that so you let it in. Something that was once told to me a long time ago was that, it's like the universe is at your door with a present. They want to give you a gift, right? And it's knocking. You get to decide if you want to open that door or not. And a lot of times we keep the door closed because, what we focus on is what we see. If we focus on it's not working, I can't do this. That's all we see, not the potential, not the positive. And another example, and this to me, I go back to this example, then I'll shut up and I'll let you talk. But, I use this as much as I can, and it's the concept of the rain. So the first person decides they're going to skip work for the day, and they're going to cozy up by the fire and watch a movie. That was their plan when they got up this morning. They like, I just want to be a homebody today. Have you ever had those days? You have, right?
100%, yeah.
Okay. Okay, and you decide, I'm going to binge Netflix House of Cards. And you look outside and it starts raining. Big deal, right? Mm-hmm. It's not really affecting you. Then you take the next person or the next scenario. Let's say it's your wedding day. It starts raining. That's a big deal, right? That can be a big upset. Maybe that's a bad omen, right? Uh-oh, this marriage isn't going to last. Mm-hmm. Let's take the third person, a farmer who's been going through a drought, who's desperate, and it starts raining. How are they reacting, right? This is, the biggest celebration ever. And so the point is the stuff that's happening, the stuff that is business, the stuff is that the natural progression in cycle and evolution is the rain. It's just something that happens. It is what it is, just as the rain is the rain. And going through building a system and hiring and firing people and testing new markets and testing new marketing channels and getting the right software and getting it to work and dealing with breakdowns and stuff, like something actually literally breaking down. That's the rain. We get to choose how we react to that, how we see the rain. Is it a gift? Is it a curse? Or is it just the rain? I'm not saying there's any right or wrong answer, but what I am saying is that you have the power to choose. And I remember I used to talk business with some friends long ago. We'd just get on the phone and just talk. And he said something, he was very logical, very left brain. He said, we always expect things are going to go wrong. Whenever I ask myself how long something's going to take, I always add an extra 30 minutes or an hour because I know something always takes longer. There's always a problem. Something always breaks. That's how he spoke.
Oh my gosh.
It's just the rain. I think that's a big distinction, and that's a big difference. So that's not even what I want to speak about today.
Well, I was literally just having this conversation last night over a drink with one of my friends and going through who do you need to be now? And, having this whole thing. And he was like, nobody's ever said any of this to me before. And I was like, that is so crazy that I just
watching the podcast.
Well, and then I was like, duh, why are you not listening to this? Hello. Do you know who I am? No, I'm kidding. Kind of, but not really. But I was like, it's just so important to when I was telling him, cause he kind of wants to start a business, but isn't sure. And he's like, how do you know that you're going to be successful? Like, how do you know? Cause I had said this weekend for me was all about planning for 2017 and really laying things out and getting excited about it. And he's like, but how do you know at this time next year? Cause I said at this time next year, I want to know what that looks like for me, because it's really important for me to feel that and to be able to visualize it and kind of step into it. And he's like, but how do you 100% know that you're going to be successful next year? Because you never do. And I was like, that's the funny thing is I always do. And I was like, I always know that I'm going to have a really successful business. Like, that's not a thing for me. I know that. I believe it with 100% certainty.
Yes.
Let's
talk about this for just a second, because this is huge. Like, you've got to understand that this is where most people are coming from. When someone is asking you that question, this is what people are asking themselves. Mm-hmm. But how do I know this is really going to work? Like, how do I really know? And this is exactly what we're saying. #backwards. I just want to be like, you fools. Mm-hmm. It only works when you know. That's it. It's effing backwards. Mm-hmm. But how do you know you'll be successful? No. You'll only be successful when and only when you have decided with every cell of your being in your DNA that you know. And that's it. Mm-hmm. That's it. But how do you know? You can't talk to someone like that because they won't get it. They won't get it. And it's so hard because you can't describe. It's like trying to describe love to someone who isn't in love. Mm-hmm. But how will you know when you're in love? Well, there'll be a exact dopamine hit of at least 50 milligrams. You just know. And that's the answer, is when you know. Mm-hmm. That's when you'll make it, because you'll know.
I actually feel like I got through to him in a way that he was like, that's so interesting. And he's like, he got excited about being able to feel like that. And I felt like that was a step forward. And I'm like, yeah. But knowing that you have this great idea, and it was almost like he just needed a little push, a little validation, a little yes, this is going to work. And that's what I was just kind of deflecting back on him. I'm like, well, but if you love this and you know it's going to make a difference, it's going to solve a problem, why are you not doing it? Why are you not doing it now? And just kind of those little nudges, I feel like pushed him in the right direction. And I am excited to kind of see where this goes. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to create a group here in San Francisco, and we're just going to meet once a week and talk about how awesome our lives are, being really grateful, really present, and then talk about how awesome our lives are going to, our lives are in a year's time, and knowing what that looks like.
Look, here's the perfect example of demonstrating how much we sabotage ourselves with our blocks around money, self-worth, fear of success, and fear of rejection. You take somebody who has a big charity, some sort of charitable organization, and you take someone with a business of the same size. And I guarantee, and they both had no experience before, right? This is their first charity and their first business. I will guarantee you 100 out of 100 times the charity got there faster.
Yeah.
Why? Because none of your junk got in the way.
Yeah, it's not about you.
It's not about you. So you're not sitting there going, ooh, what will people think? What if they don't like this? With a charity, it's just sitting there saying like, me, I don't exist. I'm just a tool. I'm just a vessel to serve. And I got to get this out here. I've got to make this change. I've got to solve this problem. I've got to help these people or this place or this thing. And you do that. What if you had that? I mean, first of all, if anyone here has ever had that experience, I've personally never built a charitable organization, but a lot of friends and peers and mentors I have, and I've seen the magic. It's magic how things just align. Mm-hmm. And it's not because, and people might argue me, not because they're doing a charitable thing, but because they don't have any story or baggage about it when they're doing it. You could say, well, James, it's God's work. I think anything we create is God's work. But we just put on all this stuff on top of it and say, ooh, but if they don't like it, or if they reject me, or if they whatever, what if you could bottle that and apply that to you, mm-hmm. And you absolutely can. And there's a lot of ways you look at it. I was talking about this today with people because they were saying like, I'm afraid to do videos. I can't do videos. They're sharing all that story. And I said, listen, this is the easiest thing right here. And we've talked about this on the past, is that when you're concerned about how good you look, or you're afraid you're going to look bad, or you're afraid you're going to get a hater or a negative comment or something, those are all inwardly focused thoughts. You're being selfish. The moment you can start to look at who you could be impacting, and how you could be impacting just one person. And that's what we do on this podcast. That's what I do with my YouTube videos, every email. And it literally is what rips me out of bed and keeps me going 9 years straight. Like, yes, I travel and I rest a lot, or I wouldn't say rest, like relax a lot and have like a very, balanced life. I don't know what balance means. It's different to everybody. But I've been doing this for 9 years straight. I didn't have some, there's a lot of people that are not around when I started because they had some breakdown, meltdown, gave up, got bored, whatever. Mm-hmm. And I just found something that would rip me out of bed every day. And it was a desire to serve at a whole nother level. And so the question that guides me is always, how can I help? Who can I help? What do I need to say? How do I need to serve? And those questions lead to answers. And when you do that, you're not focusing on yourself. You're focusing on even just that one person that you could be helping. And Phoebe shared an example mm-hmm. before the call and our pre-call talking about someone that had a real impact from listening to the show. And I'm sitting here in a room with a small group of high performers, and at least half of them have come up to me and said, I'm a huge fan, or it's my favorite podcast, and sharing the results that they've had. I know I have someone who's listened to an episode and has said, this is the worst thing I've ever listened to. And you're going to have that too, whatever it is you're doing. You can't avoid it. And today I look at every negative comment as they come in. We've got trolls on YouTube and Facebook ads and stuff like that. I look at it like the rain. It's just the rain. I can choose to let it define me and be a reflection of some insecurity that I have, or it's just the rain. It happens, and it's a part of this business. It's a part of anything you're doing where you're putting yourself out there and people can talk back. The internet and social media has given people a voice, mm-hmm. and it's crazy, but people seem to have opinions. It's bizarre. I didn't really know this. People have opinions, And I feel like there's aliens on some other planet, like looking down, like document us, and they're like, they have a lot of opinions, and they need to, for some reason, vocalize all of these opinions. It's very peculiar.
Yeah, they need a megaphone, which is social media. So
yes, and they want everyone to agree with them. If they don't, they're wrong.
Right.
Yes, these weird humanoid creatures. So, we're chatting, we're talking, we're hanging out. We haven't even gotten into one of the things that I want to talk about, which is, feeling stuck, feeling like you're not growing at the pace that you want, right? So there is that patience, and that was when I was having this conversation. That's what it started out with this person. And then what I'm able to do, especially when I'm talking in person, when you can listen really well, you get to see their world, right? And, as a marketer, that's what you need to be doing as well. If you're in the realm of marketing and selling, which if you own your own business, then you are, is being able to, to me, it's no longer, what keeps them up at night? That's like 1/10. It's like really getting their world in how they see whatever it is that they're in. So if you target other business owners, it's like, how do they see business? How do they see money? How do they see their family? How does their family see them in business? You know what I mean? That's when you start to get their world. You listen for that, right? And so something that I saw that was happening really quickly kind of intuitively prompted me to ask the question. I said, let me ask you something. How much are you worth an hour? What's an hour of your time worth? And people struggle with this when they've never been asked it before. And, so I changed the question a little bit. And I said, listen, if I were hiring you and I could pay you any wage you want, right? What would that dream wage be? Or if you just got 10 million in venture capital and you could pay yourself anything per hour, what would that be? And so she shared her number. This is her hourly rate. And what we started doing, and I'm going to kind of walk you through how you can do this yourself, is through the left brain now. We've talked a lot of the right brain or the emotional stuff, but now I'm going to show you through the left brain how this is a very logical way why things may not be working. So here's how this works, right? So let's say you tell me that in 2017, you want to make $120,000 in total revenue. But how do you know you're going to make that, right, Phoebe?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, well, here's the other answer. Besides having the knowing that it's going to happen, here's the other thing. You first of all need to decide how many hours you're going to work next year. And I would consider or factor in vacation time, stuff like that. But I did a little bit of the math, and that would mean, you need to make $10,000 a month on average. And there's 160 hours in a month. So if you did the math, you would be getting $62 an hour, but you're working 40-hour work weeks the entire year with no vacations, no break. That will yield you $120,000 a year. So what that means is that every hour of your day for 8 hours, you have to be working on tasks or activities that are worth at least $62 per hour, period. And what happens is if I shine the light on what you're doing, chances are you're not doing that. It's so easy to get sucked into these $10 an hour or less activities, these little menial things that drain our time and energy. So this is the first thing. This is the first piece of this, is that we have to figure out, we have to do the math. You have to figure out, okay, step number 1, how much revenue do I want to do next year? Step number 2, how many hours do I want to work next year? And you might want to go conservative. You might want to go as low as possible because things show up. There's holidays, family events, whatever comes up. Maybe you go to an event or a seminar, right? Stuff like that. That shows up. So you want to be as conservative and small as possible. Then you need to figure out, what does an hourly wage have to be in order to get there?
Well, and I think also with the hours, considering, not looking at this past year, like not using that as a reference, but as if you're actually building a business that you love, what are those hours? How many hours are you working? So when you're saying with no vacation and no time off, like outside of that, what does that look like? Because for me, I would base, and this was a huge issue for me, I would base everything on the year before or on the month before and be like, oh, okay, well, this is how many I worked last month, so this is probably how many I'm going to work in, this month, which is not true, with the whole like Parkinson's law. We've talked about this on, past episodes, but you're going to get it all done in whatever time you give it and allow it. So making sure that that is a commitment that you're willing to keep, whether that's 40 hours a week or 20 hours a week, whatever that looks like for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, the past week or two has definitely been an exercise in that for me. I've had about an hour a day to actually do work.
Yeah.
I've managed to be rather productive. I mean, it's great how when you say like, I'm not even going to open my inbox this week, Facebook, let's not even get it started with opening Facebook. Like the inbox hasn't been opened, and that's really great.
I mean, James, you're in a treehouse. I can't even.
The fact that I even have internet is quite a miracle. So, I want to encourage everyone to raise their rate, to make these numbers work for you. Now, obviously what we haven't done because I don't want to get too crazy in the math, but if you have a team, like you need to add those numbers up too. Because if your goal is total revenue, well then, and you have 2 people on your team, like you don't need to be the revenue generator alone. It's other people on the team who are doing the $10 an hour task or the $50 an hour, $100 an hour, right? So I'm just talking one person right now to keep it simple in the math, but you would need to factor that in. Here's something that came up and I want to share as well. I know you guys get this. This isn't anything new, and I'm preaching to the choir to a lot of you, but there's a lot of people that just don't take action. And there's so many people out there, not just Phoebe and I, who are coaches, teachers, people who've been doing this a long time, that almost like have to shake people, like just effing do it. And here's another reason why you have to just effing do it. Do you remember that time when you had the idea to start a business? Do you remember the first month or two, what it felt like? What went through your head, right? That passion was like pumping in your veins. If you had that time in your life where you were just lit up and on fire, you had your why, you had the vision, you were so excited, you're just ready to dive in. And maybe you check in and that flame's dimmed a little bit. It will continue to dim as long as you continue to do the things that you shouldn't be doing. And that is the sad, harsh, cold truth. But that's what we're here to say, is that you don't need to be doing them. You absolutely shouldn't be doing them. And so the process for this is really simple. We've talked about this in various ways on other episodes, but just starting to document everything and look at, how long did it take? Is this a $10 an hour assignment? Is this something I should be doing? But also to look, is this something I hate doing, that I dread? Because it really is, it'll sneak up on you just like, like gaining a little bit of weight sneaks up on you. One day you wake up and you're like totally burnt out because you've been spending all day doing things that aren't pushing your business forward, that aren't, and I don't want to use the word pushing, that aren't progressing the business forward. And this is where focusing on the 5% comes in.
One mantra that I have that I've been saying a lot lately and is always a good reminder is just because you can doesn't mean you should. And that is something that keeps coming up for me. I'm like, should I? No, just because I can doesn't mean I should. And
here's another one is it doesn't sound as nice as yours, but just because you enjoy it, just because you're good at it, and just because you like it doesn't mean you should do it either. There are a lot of people, myself included, will find ourselves picking those $10 or $100 hour tasks when we should be working on higher level stuff because, I love formatting the ebook, or that's fun. I love designing my photos and graphics and stuff like that. Like, yeah, but you're the CEO. I
mean, I could create a slide deck all day. I love it. I find it really fun.
Yeah.
12 hours later, I'm like, maybe that should not have been my job.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So the last thing we want to leave you here with is, as you write these things down, your job is to focus on the 5%, the 5% of activities that make 95% of the results that you're really after. And what do you do with the 95% of the other things you're supposed to be doing? The things that they're essential. They need to be done, but they don't need to be done by you. You want to look for ways to systematize, automate, outsource, and delegate. And here's the funny thing to kind of wrap your brain around it. Those 4 words are part of the 5%. It is your job to be creating systems. It is your job to add automation. It is your job to either attract managers to manage outsourcers or bring in the right outsourcers and train them and have them do their job. And this is something, this is something I've definitely will only touch on for a moment, but people struggle so much as they start to build a team, is that they want to give the team stuff that they don't want to do, and then they don't want the team to bother them so that they can go and do what they need to do. Just leave me alone. I got to get this stuff done. And this is where I have to shake those people by the shoulders and say, you fool, this is your job, is managing this team.
When I think people always assume, well, I know I certainly did. I would assume that just because I didn't like to do it and I needed someone else to, that I assumed that they wouldn't like it either. And I think I
did that all the time. I used to assume that because I was an entrepreneur and that I wanted to start a business, that no one would want to work for me because they all wanted to start their own business.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, that is so wrong on so many levels.
Yeah.
Every time we put a job post application, we'll get 60 to 100 in the first couple days.
Yeah. people...
For a job, not an entrepreneurial position,
Yeah. I feel like everyone wants to be part of a winning team. And when you create that, I feel like it's selfish when you're not hiring people. I remember in London, I went to Denise Duffield Thomas's event, and she was like, how many people are you impacting right now? And it was, your customers, your clients, all of this. And she's like, no, but also on your team. And that was a whole new perspective that I hadn't actually considered. And I was like, how selfish of me that I'm doing this all myself, in terms of, now I'm watching relationships, friendships kind of fade away because I'm so busy doing everything in my business, and I'm not actually taking a step back and allowing myself to attract people who might actually love, well, A, to be on a winning team, and B, the jobs and tasks and assignments and projects that they're responsible for. So I think, and really having that impact in their lives is so important, and is something I had really never considered until that moment, and was like, oh yeah, I get it now. I'm being selfish by not allowing other people to really step up and rise to the challenge.
Well, I've said this before, but today I find the work I do with my team even more fulfilling most of the time than the work with customers. Mm-hmm. And I don't have a problem sharing that, even though there are listeners on this call that are customers, because there's just something that we've been able to do, a way that my wife and I have been able to touch these people that is unique, in that I can work with a client and give them advice, and I can give them encouragement, and they go do the work. But with someone on your team, it's they're so much more like your family. They're under your roof, and you're like, hey, come on in, I got you. Mm-hmm. And there's something that's just been really awesome about that. And you're right. That's an opportunity and an experience that if anybody here chooses to do, it's waiting for you. And it's a pretty awesome one. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it doesn't have to be all you. So, today, this was a great episode, I hope. We kind of just went organically and had a much more conversational feel, but we covered a lot today, with a big theme being to attack this feeling of stuck and fear from both sides, of being more customer or outcome oriented and focused, who you want to impact. But also looking at the numbers and taking time to really valuing yourself and valuing your time, protecting that as well. Focusing on the 5%, giving yourself a damn raise, and letting go of the things that you shouldn't be doing. These are all reminders. All these. This is nothing new. These are just reminders. For most of you, this is just, a pat on the back that you're doing the right things and to keep going. For some of you, this might be new. This might be life-changing. Get on it, right? Mm-hmm. So, number one, I appreciate you guys putting up with my audio. If it doesn't sound as good as it normally does, I'm on a travel mic. But thank you guys so much for listening, tuning in. Make sure to subscribe to us on iTunes. Leave a review if you're loving the podcast, because Phoebe and I were talking about this. Mm-hmm. Until we decide a way to create a more open forum discussion, maybe a Facebook group, we don't hear from enough of you until we bump into you in person. And that's so rare. It's 1% of our listeners, we find them in person. So any way that we can start having more conversation and hear from you is just great. This is going on almost a year now of a passion project between Phoebe and I. And all we've been talking about the last 2 or 3 months is I want to go into a wind-up phase for taking the podcast to a whole nother level. We've just been goofing off in our spare time with this for the last year. And I think we're both feeling like, okay, what if we took this seriously now? Well,
to be honest, it's like, I mean, you just mentioned like this conversation that I had with a woman this weekend or yesterday was like, you've changed my life. And I'm like, that is what obviously that is what I want to hear, because we don't hear from that many people. And so it's like you put something out there that is in your heart and you're like, I hope this is resonating with people, and you don't actually know. And so I was saying, to her and then to you earlier was, if we put a little bit more focus, like we really get focused on like taking this to another level. We hear all the time from people in Facebook groups, like we want more and we want you to really go down the rabbit hole with a lot more topics, and we get questions from you guys. And so if you're listening to this on Mind Your Business podcast website, I would just love for you to leave us a comment. Let us know what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you want to hear about. And that just helps inspire us to keep going, just like this conversation yesterday did. It's really like taken a turn, and I've been telling everybody about it. So I so appreciate it. And I really would love to encourage you guys just to give us some more feedback. Tell us what you want.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you on the next episode.